And welcome back to episode 78 of the Weekly Tech Rant with me, Jay.
And me, Carl.
Well, Carl, I know you've got a dose of the plague, so thanks for joining us this evening.
I'm dying.
From your sick bed. But yes, we are back for that time of the year again for Apple's peak performance event. I was about to say special event, but there's always a special event with Apple, isn't it not?
They're all special.
They're all special. It's like your children, isn't it? They're all special. So Apple's first event of 2022 was another slick performance coming direct from Apple Park with Tim and the rest of the gang showcasing the latest in Apple technology and products. And unsurprisingly, many of the leaks were pretty accurate this time around, weren't they? They were. Yeah. I say unsurprisingly because the leaks aren't new, are they? We're getting lots of them. But in this case, what we saw was good accuracy across the board, which is...
It was. Most of what we'll talk about today, we kind of knew in advance. There was one standout. Whoa, didn't quite see that coming. But other than that, it was pretty spot on what we guessed was going to happen.
So then, running down from the top then, we got 2 new colours for the iPhone 13, which we'll talk about in a second.
You've just done the whole that piece. That was all. It was just 2 new colours.
Well, hang on a minute. There's more to it than that. Don't steal the thunder. We got a brand new iPhone SE. We got a brand new iPad Air. Well, technically it's not new, but we'll come back to that as well. We've got Ultra. I'll leave that there. We got the Mac Studio. The Mac Studio display. Some funky new peripherals. And, well, we did get a couple of things, but we'll leave that till last because there's a couple of things that didn't quite drop. But then let's kick it off then with these brand new colours then. So... it's starting to be a thing now, isn't it? New iPhone colours being released after the iPhone drops.
Yeah, they did that with the 12 last year, didn't they? Did they bring in a purple one?
That's right.
Yeah. So this time they've brought in 2 new shades of green, haven't they? So the iPhone 13 gets just green. It's just called green. The 13 Pro gets Alpine green. So it looks a bit like midnight green, a bit lighter.
I was just going to say to you, because you and I both went for midnight green when the iPhone 11 Pro dropped. And we were
I love that colour.
Well, yeah, it was different. That's about as good as I'm going to say to it, to be honest with you. Well, I remember watching that event, because I watched that event from a hotel room in Amsterdam. And I remember seeing that green and thinking, that's good. It was all right. I've got to be honest with you. Okay, at the end of the day, it's a colour. It's not making any difference to the phone. And if I look at my 12 Pro, I've gone with the gold.
I was about to say, so maybe your judgment isn't great. You went with the gold.
What are you trying to say?
Bling bling.
Gold member, like a bit of Austin Powers. Anyway. I look. It's different. I do think it's starting to be a thing, isn't it? Spring colours.
It is
for the iPhone. It also bumps their sales up. It's a clever sales tactic, isn't it? Because, a lot of people have already picked up the phone on that release schedule of October. But then you're getting people who maybe have been on the fence and like, oh, new shade of colour. I'll take one of those now, please, isn't it?
Yeah, rather than like us holding out and just getting the 14 Pro.
Yeah, we have said we are holding out for 14. We've had a year off. We've saved our wallets a little bit. And to be honest with you...
So for a moment, I did think maybe the 13 Pro Max in green. No, and then I came to my senses.
I'm glad you did.
I started wandering off and thinking about GTA 5, the new version.
Oh, God, don't talk about that now. Don't talk about that now. So, we also got, though, another brand new iPhone, which is the iPhone 3rd generation SE. It's a brand new phone in the sense that it is an SE,
it's
the
not
3rd
really.
gen. But it's not. Realistically, it's an iPhone 8, isn't it? By the look of it.
It is. It's the same as the last SE. It's the iPhone 8 chassis with updated internals. But man, they spent a long time talking about this. Even the presenter had that kind of, why am I here face on?
Yeah, I thought that. It was like...
So I was here last 2 years ago. I did the exact same segment. This is the same phone. You're right. You got some updates. We've now got 2 new colours. So we've got it came in red again. Is it the...
Product red,
what's the red they call it? Product red.
Yeah.
And then we got Starlight and Midnight, which actually is just white and black, the same as the last one. So really no new colours. But we did get the A15 processor, didn't we, with 5G support.
It's a really weird scenario with Apple here, isn't it? Because externally, it's a really old design. but internally, it's almost bang up to date, really, isn't it? It's quite crazy in that
Yeah, I
way.
mean, you've got the full A15. It's not a cut down version. Okay, the
No,
5G support is a bit cut down. There's no wave or 6 GHz plus if you're in the US. There's only a 2x2 MIMO aerial rather than 4x4 like you get in the Pro. So it does cut down your speeds a bit. So I think they advertise just LTE Advanced rather than gigabit LTE like you get on the 13 Pros. But other than that, it's the same A15 and 5G. It's just in a very old package now.
that's it. You're right. The form factor is really dated, isn't it? That smaller
Still got Touch
rounded.
ID, the home button. It's still
But
got like a 720p 4.7-inch LCD screen,
yeah, but it has got a 12 megapixel camera on the back with deep
but it's the
fusion,
same as the last one.
the smart HDR stuff. That is, no
It's
different.
the same as one 2 years ago.
But this is what
They haven't
puzzles me
changed the
here.
camera.
All they've done, like you say, is uprate the CPU effectively,
Yeah, which is
realistically.
going to give them some better battery life apparently because it's a more efficient chip.
And I guess with the SEs, as we've said before, they're aimed at two people. They're aimed at budget conscious, cost conscious users,
Yeah,
and they're also aimed at business users as well, aren't they? For a more
yeah.
affordable
I suppose it's
device.
those people that they want people to buy the newer phone. They want people to buy the 13 and the Pro, obviously, but they'd rather you bought something from them than nothing at all and went to the competition like Android.
Yeah,
At
and
least
that's
this way
why
you're
it's.
locked in, start to get locked into the ecosystem and maybe spend more on other Apple services.
Well, this is it, isn't it? And if you're dipping your toe in the water of Apple, and you're only paying, what was it? What was it cost?
Or
$429.
49,
Yeah,
up $30 from last time.
yeah. So 429 is a relatively affordable price point in the grand scheme of things of Apple. Okay, I appreciate for a lot of people that's still a lot of money, um, and it is. But when you compare that to the cost of a 13 Pro Max, it's much more affordable. And you're right. Once you've dipped your toe in the water and you start using it, and you're locked into that ecosystem, the reality is for a lot of the users, you're going to upgrade at some point into a better device or a more expensive price point, aren't you?
Oh, definitely. I heard those rumors though. I think I said to it before the show. I'd heard rumors that it was going to come out at 199, which would
Yeah,
have
but it's
been
very low though.
whoa, head explode. I would have gone out and bought two immediately.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. For phones for your kids and that,
Yeah,
great.
that's exactly. I was going to right, kids. Here's a new phone. Look how nice Daddy is.
Crazy man. Yeah, but you're right. At that price point, why would you complain? But 429, let's be honest, is more realistic.
Yeah,
Um, given where Apple are at the moment, and I think the $30 price point increase, I think reflects the current state of the market, and also probably the supply chain issues they're having. Um,
yep,
but yeah, it's still not. You know, if you look at it from an internal point of view, that A15 chip is probably, well, within reason, probably the fastest mobile chip in the market at this point in time, isn't it?
yeah.
But you've got a design which is what, 6 years, 7 years old. Am I thinking? I
Gotta
mean,
be. Yeah.
I can't remember how old is the iPhone 8. I mean, off the top of my head, I'd have to look it up. Um, iPhone 8.
Don't
Let's
know.
have a
It's got to
quick.
be
Let's
at least 5, hasn't it?
go on then. Let's quickly do it because iPhone 8. When was the iPhone 8 release? iPhone 8 came out in drum roll 2017.
2017.
Yeah, so 5 year
Okay,
old
so just
designer,
under 5 years old.
but it looks incredibly dated compared to the current lineup, doesn't it? So,
Yeah, those
but
bezels. Whoa.
yeah, but at the end of the day, if you're not looking for bleeding edge, you want a good phone that's going to work. You want a reasonably decent camera. It's got, was it IP67 rating? I think for water resistance, dust rating. You know,
Yeah.
it's going to take decent pictures. Actually, it's not too bad. When you break it down, it's not a bad phone. Would I buy one? No, but I'm not the target consumer though.
Buy one for one of your kids, though.
Not at the age they are at the minute.
No, I mean when it comes at the time that they're walking to school and you need to buy them a phone.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, at the moment, to kind of tangent as we do on this show, um, I was thinking of getting one of the iPods, for my daughter
Yeah,
because she's got one of my old phones. She's got an iPhone 6 Pro that has been
yeah,
sat in the drawer for ages, and I use it as an iPod. But it's really slow, really slow.
yeah.
Storage is bad. But have you seen the cost of iPods touches?
Just buy her an iPhone 8 for cheap.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, because actually you could buy you can pick up an iPod Touch. I think for if I want to go for what 128 gig, yeah, because 32 gig is ridiculous. Once you put some apps on that and the photos, um, that's £199. 128 gig one is 300 quid. So yeah, you're right. You might
Oh,
as well. You're almost stepping into that territory, aren't you, with iPhone SE? But
I mean, yeah, an iPhone 8 64 gigs starts on eBay at 160 quid.
that's what I mean. It's nuts. It is nuts. But I
Just,
digress.
yeah.
So we had two new colors then, a brand new SE3, which really isn't that brand new. It's just basically uprated engines. But we then also they also dropped then another iPad Air. So this is the iPad Air 5, which is
Yeah. It was
same
due an
design.
update.
Yeah, which is the same design as the last iPad Air.
Yeah, because I mean, this was outside of the Pros. This was the first other iPad to get the Pro design. The squarish edges, that kind of stuff. But that was released back in 2020, so 2 years ago now.
Yeah,
So
which was
yeah,
the but when that came out, let's be honest, that was quite groundbreaking, wasn't it? Because the air lineup all of a sudden was quite an attractive looking machine.
half the price of the Pro, and all of a sudden you got something that looks like a Pro and has the majority of stuff of a Pro. Yeah,
Yeah, and now they're taking it one better, haven't they? Now the lines are
they
really
have.
starting to blur between the Pro and the airline, really.
Yep, yep.
So
It got the M1, didn't it?
it did indeed. I was just going to say, yeah, it's got the M1. So this is the kind of, I don't want to say bog basic M1, but it's the entry level M1, isn't it? With 8 cores, eight is it 8 core GPU as well? 8 gig of
Eight
RAM.
core. Is it 9 or 10 GPUs? 8 gig of RAM. Yeah. There's no 16 gig RAM option like on the Pro. You just it's
No,
8 gig. That's all you get.
and it comes with it. So it's got a faster USB C port. So it's got USB C Gen 2. So that's the 3.1 Gen 2.
Yeah,
Um,
so 10
it,
gig rather than the previous 5 gig. Strangely, no Thunderbolt 4 though.
no, I was going to
But
mention that actually.
that's
Yeah,
part in the M1. So they've consciously decided to downgrade that to make a
yes.
differentiator.
So they've also got given it 5G support as well. But again, no
Yep.
Wave support like
No.
oh, brain's gone dead. SE.
The 13
Uh,
Pro. Yep. 13 Pro.
sorry, yeah, so 30 Pro. Um, it's also brought. So they've given it some slight improvements, haven't they, to the cameras as well, haven't they? So the cameras
Yes, I think it
got
was it
center
was the
stage.
last it's the last iPad to get center stage, isn't it? So the improved ultra wide camera on the front.
Yeah, so ultra wide camera on the front gives you center stage, but there's no changes, is there, to the main camera at the back? I think from what I worked
No,
out,
no, that's the
that's pretty
same.
standard.
No changes to the display either, so that's another differentiator with the Pro. The iPad Pro, you get ProMotion display, don't you? And you get mini LED. None of that with the Air.
But the bit where it starts to get funny is it's got two capacity levels. So you got 64 gig, you got 256 gig. There's
Yeah,
no 128 model.
no. But that's to push you to buy the 128. That's to buy the 256. Sorry.
I just Oh, and the other thing, sorry, I had to scribble down here. It does support the new Studio Display, which we'll cover in a bit.
It
Is
does. Yes, it does display out up to 6K, doesn't it?
it does. So you've now got an iPad Air, which is I remember what size screen, 10.9-inch iPad Air. So basically,
Yeah.
Apple have just cannibalized the 11-inch Pro
Yes.
because you've blurred the lines now. Now got a entry level. Well, it's not. Let's call it not entry level, but you've basically
You've got
started
the
what's it?
original iPad.
The original iPad. Five. You got the original iPad, which now effectively is nerfed because the iPad there is just absolute basic.
Yeah, but it's
It
a
does.
big price difference in it, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that starts. So if we're starting in pounds, that starts at what's it? Just over £300 for
Well,
the
it's
standard iPad.
570 odd for the
Yeah,
Air, though.
and just to recap though, the if we go the original iPad also has a 64 and 256 gig
Yeah.
storage point. It has again lightning connector. It's a 10.2-inch display, much lower resolution, much lower concert. It supports the first gen original Apple Pencil, and it's got an A13 Bionic chip, so really quite old in comparison. plus an 8 megapixel wide camera on the back, and what's it? I think there's of course it does 1080p video recording in that, so there's no
Yeah.
4K, but it does have the 12 megapixel ultra wide on the front as well, but no, and it does support center stage as well. The front,
Yep.
the box down one. So pretty standard device, doesn't it? It does what it says on the
Yeah.
tin. Is going to work well. But then you're right. Then we step it up now to the brand new Air. So the Air now, completely different chassis design in line with the Pros.
Yeah.
Sits in that where the 11-inch Pro would have been. Has the same restriction and capacity as the kind of the basic iPad.
Yeah.
But from a processing point, I mean, it's crazy. I
I
mean,
mean, to be honest, we thought the M1 was a bit of overkill for the iPad Pro.
well,
It's
that's what I'm
it's
getting at.
definitely overkill for the Air.
I mean, it's a huge leap from an A13 in the iPad to what was the original one was an A15. Wouldn't they have an A15? Didn't they in
Yeah.
the last iPad? And the
It wouldn't
M1
have
is
been an
really
A15, would it? It would have been an
14, wasn't it? Sorry,
A13.
was it 13?
Because 2 years ago.
2020? Oh yeah, I suppose it would have been. Thinking about it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Well, or did they? Was it later in the year? I guess it was thinking about it. Yeah, if you were, yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose, yeah. A14 chip.
That was A14, was it?
Yeah, A14. I've
Ah,
just quickly looked up because I was. Do you know what you threw me? So yeah, so A14 chip. So Apple are saying that the M1 in the form factor you've got it in the current iPad is 50% faster than A15. So it's a hell of a leap
okay.
then for an A14.
Yeah.
Okay, what it doesn't have then from the Pro is
ProMotion display,
promotion display. You
mini
haven't got
LED.
you haven't got Thunderbolt 4
Yep.
support. Um, you don't have 128 gig, and you don't have anything above 256 in storage.
Yep.
You, what else is there on there that they've got? What promotion you
So the iPad
say?
Pro got a Face ID,
LiDAR.
is it?
Well, there's no. There's like I say, there's LiDAR on this, isn't there as well? So that's not a 16 gig of RAM, of course, because if you take out the 12.9, you get the 8 core. You get the bigger M1 chip with 16 gig of RAM.
Yeah.
And of course, the camera is slightly better on the what's it the iPad Pro as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, take those points away. Oh, and of course, you get the 5G.
Yep.
5G capability.
You got Face ID, haven't you, on the Pro?
Yeah, it just puzzles the hell out of me here, though, that they have completely cannibalized the 11-inch point, because a lot of people will be going, well, do I need extra storage? Well, if I don't need extra storage and I can live with 256, then I'm just going to buy an Air.
And you get more funky colours on the Air. You know, you
Yeah,
even
'cause you
get
get
purple and blue now, two new colours they introduced for the Air this time around.
exactly. I think this is a great bit of kit, but I think what this showcases that anything about below the Air is going to be I think an N-1 release for CPU from the iPhone. So
Yeah.
in this case, it'll be the next one, or maybe an A15 when the iPhone will be an A16 or whatever. And I think now we're going to see iPads are going to take the bottom rung of the M chip setup,
Yeah.
because they are now touting them as desktop. I mean, they have been doing it for a while, but now they're going to really tout them as desktop computer replacements. Considering the fact that you've got USB-C across the board here, the fact that you can do display out, you can use peripherals with them, it is
Yeah.
your computer replacement, isn't it? But I don't know. What do
If
you
only
think? I mean,
iPad OS was up to it.
well, I was going to. That's the only downside. But I mean, what did you think? I mean, were you impressed? Did you think it was all right, or were you just like, Jesus, what have you done here? You know?
My first thought was, man, yeah, that's overpowered. But
Yeah.
then they didn't up the price. It's the one device they haven't upped the price on.
No.
So to add all those extra stuff in and still keep the price that, I was quite impressed with it. It's a serious bang for buck.
It is. It is. I mean, if you need if the basic iPad, let's just say for whatever reason, doesn't cut the mustard, but you
Yeah.
don't want to get into iPad Pro space, you know,
750 and up pricing,
you
yeah.
know, you know, you're right. It's not a bad way to go. Um, I'm just curious, you know, it's just like you say, it's an odd place. What what puzzles me is what are they going to do to the next Pro lineup? Because the iPad Pro is going to have a spec bump now.
Of course, of course. And to be honest, right, I like it. If at that point they said it's got ProMotion display as well, I would have got my credit card out on the spot and bought it.
What the Air? You mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would have been regretting it this morning when I go, oh my god, I spent another 500 quid. But I would have, yeah, because I got the first 10 point whatever inch iPad Pro that came out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the old iPad style, isn't it? I've got a
That's right.
home button and everything. Yeah, it was the pre-new style one. But yeah, I bought that on the spot after when it was announced. I would have done the same here if they said it had the ProMotion display like my current one does. I would have bought it on the spot.
Yeah, because I've got the third gen Pro. So I've got 12.9 third gen
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Which is pretty good. That's I've got the 256, 256 model on that, which has got the A12X Bionic chip, which
yeah,
still works well, but and does everything I need it to. It's got lidar in it, which I've only used about 3 times, and when you play with the first apps. But what I really
yeah.
like, I have to be honest, but what I really like on the new ones is the smaller bezels, the better keyboard support, and that funky stand. Um, is
Bezels. Come on,
definitely
I'm running the second gen. You seen the bezels on that?
bezels, my friend, bezels. But yeah, you're right. There's not necessarily much in it, and those 12X chips weren't bad at all. They were almost as good performance wise, I think, up and above to the A13 at least and beyond
Yeah,
slightly. So they weren't too bad. But yeah, definitely the next gen, needs to have a spec bump here. But interesting move from Apple here, I think, in moving the M1 chip into this lineup because it starts to really standardize across their product set now, doesn't it? Of like how good this chip is from entry level all the way up to what we're going to talk about shortly.
yeah.
In that sense. Okay, well, Air looks good. Right then, I guess we got to get the cats out of the bag. Um, M1 chip now has a whole lineup, doesn't it? They have completed
Oh,
the
it
lineup
does.
of the M1 chip. So, just to recap, M1 was released back in 2020 with the 8-core CPU, the 8-core basic 8-core GPU, wasn't it?
Yep.
And plus 16-core neural engine, and with a base of 8 gig or 16 gig of memory. And then last year we got the Pro and the Max chips. I nearly said Pro Max, but Max chips, which took it to a whole new different level, didn't they? Really, really started to improve the situation.
Yeah.
And the M1 Max gave us. So what do we get? Well, the M1 Max gave us up to 32 gig. No, more than that. No, or no,
64.
64 gigs. Sorry, yes, of course,
Yeah.
64 gig of memory. With that, we also got additional improvements around 10-core CPU, which was apparently around 70% faster than the original 8-core CPU. There was either a 24-core GPU or a 32-core
32.
GPU.
Yep.
And again, much faster, 4 times faster than the original M1, and as you said correctly, up to 64 gig of RAM with a 400 gig memory bandwidth, which is twice of that of the M1 Pro and 6 times the M1. There were obviously other features around the neural engines, but those were the big kind of marquee features.
Yeah.
Well, Carl, they blew that out the water yesterday, didn't they? With the release of the M1. Drum roll, please. Hang on. Where's my sound effects? Wait for it.
The M1 Ultra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I know you're feeling rubbish. So
Yeah,
yes,
I mean, I wasn't expecting another M1 product. There've been rumors of an M2, hadn't there?
they have
Before the
everywhere.
event, everywhere. But instead, we got the M1 Ultra, and they did say this will be the last chip in the M1 family. And yeah, so apparently, when Apple built the M1 Max, they built a super secret 2.5 terabyte a second interconnect into the M1 Max. It's called Ultra Fusion.
Ultra
And well,
Fusion.
it allows them to fuse two M1 Maxes together, so that they operate as one single CPU rather than having two separate M1 Maxes on the motherboard like you traditionally do. So yeah, so basically take everything from the M1 Max and double it.
Yeah, so 114 billion transistors, 20 CPU cores, which is 16 performance, 4 efficiency,
Yep.
64 GPU cores, 32 core neural engine, up to 128 gig of unified memory, and 800 gigabit per second memory bandwidth.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, like you say, take it and double it. One hell of a chip, realistically, isn't it? Really,
It,
it's
it is. It is.
unbelievable.
Um, they were out in force with their silly charts again, weren't they?
Ah, yes, they were the classic Apple benchmark GPU power versus performance, and I love what was
I
it?
mean, I paused
The
the video again when I was writing my notes this afternoon. I was still like, they're just not good charts. They're
well,
so woolly. But they're saying, what were they saying? They said it offers better CPU performance than a 16-core PC desktop, while using 100-watt less power. That was
that
compared
was
to
it.
a Core i9 1200K. Now, in all fairness, Intel aren't renowned at the moment for their
I was just
power
going to say,
efficiency, are
I was
they?
just going to say, any chip apart from an Intel chip, it's more has better power consumption. I mean, so that wasn't
I would
really
have been
fair.
interested to see them compare it against an AMD rival.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah,
a bit more
true,
power efficient.
but yeah, definitely a good one.
And this other one, though, if it's true, is wow. But obviously, I'm guessing Apple have just tested with Apple specific programs optimized, but they're saying better GPU performance than the highest end discrete GPU while using 200-watt less power.
That was the
But
great
obviously,
chart, wasn't it? That had two
that
lines,
was
was it? Just two lines and one ultra, and like you say,
yeah,
one other line. The curve, yes, just said highest end GPU. Real,
yeah.
no
But
real.
they did specify it though. It's a 1200K again, not power efficient, and a 3090. Now we already know how much a 3090 takes. I mean, up to 350 watts, isn't it? So
Yeah, and
yeah,
let's be fair though, Intel did exactly the same thing when they did their comparison benchmarks to try and prove that they were better than the M1 chips.
they
They
all do
also
it.
took
Yeah,
Nvidia cards, didn't they, and their own CPUs, which they chose
yeah.
specifically for that. So yeah, it's tit for tat. I feel in this sense.
It is. So we'll wait for the third party unbiased reviews, and we'll come back to you on actual performance.
But in terms of pure grunt, it is one
Yeah.
hell of a chip, isn't it? Really
Oh,
is one
definitely,
hell of a
definitely.
chip. I mean,
Yep.
when you look at what they're trying to do here, it is the chip that is powering or going to power, their high end machines. The GPU can now support up to four 6K Pro. It can drive four of Apple's 6K Pro XDR displays and a 4K screen
Yeah.
alongside it. I mean,
Finally, some actual
finally,
display
we could.
support.
I was just going to say, I'm stunned because I'm like, what? But I do love the fact they I love the fact they had to caveat that saying, yep, you can drive four 6K displays. Oh, and if you need another 4K display, you can plug one of those in too. Um,
Yeah.
so the fact that you could argue, well, could it drive more than five screens? No, it's going to be a limitation, isn't it? On doesn't matter how many
Well, you
screens
just
you've
doubled
got.
the limitation of the M1 Max, haven't you? That's the only reason you
Well,
got that many.
yes, you have indeed. Yes, and the Pro. um,
Yeah.
That is a good point there. And again, the memory there up to 128 gig of memory. And considering how efficient these chips are, and we've already seen that in the last 2 years of the M1 lineup, of actually how much more efficient they are in many tasks, rendering tasks, other production tasks that from a sort of software development side. You know, having 128 gig memory here is going to be one hell of a gain, isn't it? And I don't think
Yeah.
any people here, your average user is not going to see anything here, but people who are really using these in rendering farms or high end graphics, CAD work, this is a
Yeah.
machine that's going to be here. I did see whilst I was doing some research this evening before I came online that Geekbench, there's already been a Geekbench test done apparently.
Oh, has there?
Yeah, there's been a leaked result. Now, again, take it with a pinch of salt. That states there's a leaked Geekbench test that says that the M1 Ultra is more powerful than the 28 core Intel W, which is the highest processor spec you can get for the last Intel Mac Pro lineup. Yeah. So the M1 Ultra
Okay.
scores 1,747 in a single core test, which is pretty much the same as across the other M1s. Seems to be standardized, isn't it? But when it
Yeah.
comes to multi-core, it scores. You ready for this?
Yep.
24,055 in a Geekbench 5 test. compared to the 28 core Intel Xeon and this funky names, the W-3275M, which is the best you can get in the M1, that only scored 19,951 in a multi-core. So it's about 20% difference between the Ultra and the most expensive Intel CPU you can get for in that just a state for a Mac Pro.
But okay, but in all fairness, that processor is coming on 3 years old now.
Yeah, yeah.
Apple aren't that great at keep. Well, they were never that great at keeping up with the latest Intel kit, were they?
No, the point I raise there, and I guess, is that what they've done there is, and what they needed to do was
Yeah,
they needed to um, destroy their previous lineup to make it far more attractive, isn't it, to
of
move across
course,
from the Intel line. But what you're right
definitely.
is that Intel will come out with a much higher.
But Intel probably already come out of a much higher. So this is one from 2019. This
Yeah,
processor.
the only thing though I will say though that is, don't forget, the Mac Pro, the last Mac Pro can have two additional
Mm.
GPUs, can the Radeons. It can also take up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM because obviously we're in a PC
Yes.
architecture and not Apple Silicon. But taking that aside, just talking about the M1 Ultra chip here, it's a great fitting finish, if you will, to uh, that
Oh,
M1,
massively.
and
Yeah.
it does set the scene now nicely for the M2. So whatever comes next year with the refresh in the Mac lineup, the iMacs, they've got a nice starting point. So the M2 chips can come in, and what we'll probably see is incremental increases, won't we? In the base lineup, so maybe 8 core CPU will go to 10 core. You'll
Yeah.
see probably more power efficiencies, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some additional RAM improvements there as well. And probably display again. But it'll be nice. It'll be a nice way for them to start just incrementally stepping up on it. And I imagine they will keep the lineup. So you'll get an
Yeah.
M2, M2 Pro, M2 Max, M2 Ultra, etc., etc. But yeah, impressive chip. I have to say, I didn't expect that. That did not see that coming at all. It was a
No.
bit of a surprise. What wasn't a surprise though, in the
It's
name,
what they're
was
putting it into.
they're putting it into. So yes, the Apple Studio, which,
Yeah.
well, yeah, that was new,
It's
wasn't it? Let's be honest.
it's the Mac not so mini,
Yes. What the hell is it?
or
I
is it,
mean,
or is
that's
this
what
a
it.
Mac Mini? It's a Mac Mini Pro, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, it's a Mac Mini on steroids, isn't it? So they've kind of jacked
Yeah.
up the Mac Mini design
Yeah.
and shoved an M1 Ultra chip in it.
Or an
But
M1 Max. You can have either an M1 Max or an M1
yes, you
Ultra.
can. Yeah, true. You can do that. That is very true.
So it
So
does give
the
you some options though. So it gives you from 32 gig all the way up to 128 gig of RAM if you go for the Ultra. It comes with four Thunderbolt 4 ports on the back, along with hurrah 10 gigabit Ethernet.
woohoo!
Oh, a pair of USB A's on there, which is nice to see some backward compatibility there. It's got HDMI. Even's got a high impedance headphone jack for pro audio. Uh, on the front, though, you get a card reader. And Apple have actually put some ports on the
They
front.
have. Yes.
I have, yeah, and you get two more Thunderbolt 4 ports if you go for the Ultra. If you go for the Max, it just says you get two USB-C ports. So I'm confused. USB-C is a physical port
Yes.
definition. So I'm presuming what they actually mean is it's USB 3.
Oh, what in the spec you mean that they've? Yes.
Yeah, because technically Thunderbolt 4 is using a USB-C port.
Yeah, you're right. So yes, that's on the back. Yes, on the back they've got four Thunderbolt 4
Yeah,
ports,
yeah,
one 10 gig Ethernet copper, not as you
yeah,
say, two USB A's, which are going to be
yep.
spec 3, aren't they?
USB 3, yep.
One HDMI. That's nice headphone jack, as you said, and there's also a physical power button, which is nice to see.
Oh, there is, yeah.
Um, and as you say, yeah, on the front you get two USB-C ports up to 10 gig a second. So yeah, that's got to be
It's got to be USB
USB
3.
3.
Yeah,
Yeah, but if you
yeah.
get the Ultra
They're Thunderbolt 4.
with 40 gig a second, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to say, I really was impressed. Now the studio had been teased, hadn't it? There had been some
It
rumors about
had,
the
yeah.
studio coming. Some of the renders and the kind of releases were quite close, I think, to what we see display dropped. Um,
Yep,
So, like you say, you get two models: the M1 Max, so that's the 10 core CPU, 24 core GPU, so it's the basic Max chip, isn't it? And
yep.
it gives you 32 gig of memory up to 64. and then you get the Ultra, as you say, which is all the good stuff, up to
Well, yeah,
128 gig.
there's two M1 Max chips, isn't there? There's two Ultra chips
You can
or
have
variations of,
you can
yeah.
have the 10 core 32 core GPU and 16, or you can or the bog basic 10 core with 24 core
24.
GPU,
Yeah,
and then the um, the M1 Ultra also does have that too as well. Don't forget there's
yeah,
the
it does,
20
yeah.
core CPU, and then you have a choice of 64 core GPU or the 48 core GPU.
That's the
And
one.
let's be honest, the basic M1 Ultra is probably going to do do you well, isn't it?
Because
Um,
there's a $1,000 price difference between the two.
what was interesting though is that the basic storage capacity for the M1 Max is 512 versus a
Yeah,
terabyte with the Ultra, but you can also then play the configurator, can't you, and go all the way up to
you
8
can. But
terabytes.
because it's two M1 Maxes and the lowest to do is 512, isn't it? So it had to be a
Yeah,
terabyte.
which did make me laugh. I like I
But
say,
yeah,
if you were looking to buy a Mac Mini, supercharged Mac Mini, with an M1 Pro or an M1 Max, then it isn't going to happen. The Studio is that design.
as close as
Interestingly,
you're
though,
going to
the lineup for Apple though is now MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, iMac 24-inch, Mac Mini, Mac Studio, Mac Pro. That's it. So the Mac Studio
get.
is slots in there between the Mac Mini and the Mac Pro,
Yeah, yeah,
which is interesting given how much power it's got. Uh, it's a little intriguing, isn't it, of what it's got here? Um,
it is. But yeah, I mean, hold on to your seats. Things are about to get priced, though, aren't they? When I started playing with the
well,
configurator. So, I mean,
what
the
did you buy?
Max version starts at $1,999, doesn't
That's
it?
it.
And
Yeah.
the Ultra version starts at $3,999. But I played with the configurator. You can spec that Ultra up to basically $8,000.
Well, that's chump change because wasn't it like 50 grand for the Mac Pro if you spec that
Well,
maxed out?
yes, you're right. It is, but didn't that include 1.5 terabyte of RAM?
Yeah, but what's 1.5 terabyte RAM between friends? I mean, I was quite tempted to get my my ultra pimped out Ultra for eight. Well, sorry, a penny short of 8 grand. I mean, I didn't need to throw in Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro because at that stage of the
No.
game, you've probably got a copy of that. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you take the name of the game, it's a studio machine. So this is for media professionals, is it not? Who are doing
Yeah,
high
this
end
isn't for
stuff.
me and you.
No, I
Not
don't
yet,
know.
anyway.
I mean, if we took the Max chip, you know,
Yeah,
um, let's take if we took the basic Max chip with 32 gig of the basic Max chip with a 10 core 24
yeah.
10 and 24 respectively, 32 gig of RAM and 512 storage. That's actually not a bad desktop machine, realistically, isn't
No,
it?
definitely not.
That's going to last well. I feel though you would be doing it a disservice, if I'm honest with you, if you bought that.
Yeah, because all you really wanted was the Max, the Mac Mini with a Max chip in, didn't you? Or a
Yeah,
Pro chip.
yeah. I was going to say, but you're getting far more connectivity than the Mac Mini, and you're getting 10 gig Ethernet, so you can't really argue, I suppose.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I'm impressed. It's a nice machine, but the big question though is is where did we go from here? And before we talk about that, what they also released alongside it was the brand new Apple Studio Display, wasn't it? Which is a fantastic new screen. Cough, cough.
This was my
Um,
disappointment.
oh, disappointment central. So,
They could have done so much better, especially for the cost.
I mean, at this stage of the game, you've got to ask yourself, what were Apple thinking? Because to
So
me,
yes, it's the first time in ages they've released a display that didn't cost over £5,000 without a
but
stand.
but
But I'm just going to say the price now:
I would,
$1,599.
yeah.
Which is not a cheap display, but okay, it's a studio display. So why is it only 27-inch?
So for your 27-inch, then what you get is a 5K display,
Yeah,
600 nits of brightness. It's got
yeah.
True Tone, anti-reflective, that weird nano texture glass. What the hell that is? I have no
No,
idea.
no, you don't get that as standard. That's
Oh,
$300 more.
sorry. Yes, apologies. You can have that.
You
Um,
can have that, but
but
it's
then it
only
gets
60 hertz. There's no
yeah.
ProMotion.
Well,
It's
hang on a minute.
oh,
We forgot the other bits. The other bits you get with it. You get a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera with center stage.
You do, and an A13.
You get a three-way mic array and a six-speaker surround sound, plus three USB-C ports and
Yeah,
one Thunderbolt 3 port. And you get like a funky. There's a really tilt-adjustable stand, isn't it? Which is basically, a stand.
it's the same stand you get on the iMac.
But yes, I'll let you destroy it.
Yeah, so okay, it is 5K, great.
But
Only 27-inch, really. Not 32, not larger, 27, fine. 60 hertz, so there's no variable refresh rate, no ProMotion, no mini LED. It's edge lit, so it's not. You just got one dimming zone for your HDR 600 spec. But yeah, nano texture glass is $300 more on top of that. Oh, and the stands. So I'm going to give them credit for this though. They're not going to charge you extra for the VESA mount.
oh,
But if
thank
you
you. It's
want the
very kind of
VESA
you.
mount, you don't get a stand with it. It doesn't. You don't get the normal stand and the VESA mount. It's one or the other. So,
No,
so they kind of are charging you. Okay. But if you want the height adjustable stand, and bear in mind this height adjustable stand doesn't swivel, it's just height adjustable, it's going to cost you another $400 on top.
it just.
Do yourself a favor, guys, and go buy a couple of much nicer, much bigger screens. They might not
There
be
are.
5K, but you can have a couple of very, very nice, much better 4K displays for probably less than you're paying for this.
Well, you can even buy 34-inch ultra wide screen. So I know when I was doing some kind of quick research, MSI do a 34-inch ultra wide 5K display, yeah,
Yep.
which is similar specs, not with all the fancy bells and whistles, and you don't get a camera and all that stuff. But in terms of screen, you can pick that up for basically the same money as this. And
You could get the G9 Odyssey, couldn't you?
yeah, you could do. I mean, so only 600 nits. There's no HDR display, no mini LED, as you say, no ProMotion. Yet it costs the same as more higher spec screens. I mean, the XDR display is 6K, isn't it? And that's
But that's a
interesting.
proper full-on professional display, color calibrated.
That's
They
1600 nit,
undercut the competition there, didn't they?
Yeah. But what gets me, it's still only Thunderbolt 3. Um, which,
Yeah.
why not future proof it? It's just is this Apple trying to? I mean, it's basically the same screen from it's almost similar to the 27-inch iMac screen from a few years ago.
Oh, it is, and it's basically the same as the one they've been recommending all this time. The LG, is it a
Well, isn't
Superfine or something they call it?
yeah?
It's
Well,
LG's 5K display. Yes, it
who's
looks
making
nicer. It's
them?
got an aluminium chassis, but it's the same,
I mean,
and that's cheaper.
yeah, I think Apple have shot themselves in the foot here a little bit. Um,
That G9 Odyssey, the Samsung one, that's only £1,100,
this
and
is it, isn't it?
that's that's a proper decent display.
I just think that they've underspec this, overpriced it, but made it out to be something far better than it is.
Massively,
It's
yeah.
I personally thinking, unless you are, I mean, 5K is all great. But reality for 99% of people, 5K is overkill. 4K is probably overkill for a majority of people, but you could get a far better, higher spec 4K display for less money.
Yeah, and especially at 27-inch. That's
Yeah.
5K at 27-inch is
No,
you're not
I
seeing
want
the benefit of 5K.
no, I want 28 plus 32-inch minimum for that, Um
Yeah.
it just beggars belief of what they were going here to do that. If you, as you say, if you pay the extra money, you get the funky cleaning cloth. So that might be something to sell you. I don't know. I mean, if you
Buy a
get the
couple of cheaper 4K displays and buy the mini cloth from Apple for £20. Or
yeah,
better yet, buy one from Amazon for £2.
it just is nuts. I am puzzled here. I am puzzled.
It was a roller coaster of a show.
It was indeed, and I think the only other new things they dropped then, just to kind of round out tonight's lineup. Then we got a little splash of peripheral updates, didn't we, Carl?
We did. We got some new colours, didn't we? Not really new colours, but you can now separately. But they did a black and silver trackpad, Magic Mouse, and keyboard to match your new studio stuff.
Yes. So the Magic Mouse and the trackpad are black topped with silver sides. I'm looking at my trackpad and Magic Mouse on my desk, and they're identical except mine are black all the way through.
Okay, so they're not two-tone; they're just black.
Well, I mean, in fact, no, I tell a lie. I'd almost say it was two tone because it's not. It's kind of midnight, what they call the midnight sort of color,
Midnight
isn't it?
grey.
Yeah, um, yeah. And then the Magic Keyboard with Touch ID is black. Says the
Yeah.
man who's looking at his Magic Keyboard right in front of him, the last generation one without Touch ID, which is also black. Hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, Apple, you're just dishing up old stuff, which is exactly the same. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you wanted black to go with your black stuff, hey, looking good.
There
They're
you go.
yours for $199, $149, and $99 respectively. Convert to your local currency. Just change the currency sign.
Yeah.
All in all, though, for a March event, let's be honest, everything that we've dropped today pretty much was in the leaks and lineups that we saw weeks ago.
Yeah.
So no major big surprises apart from that Ultra chip and the Studio in terms of spec, what we got. The displays themselves, though, yeah, total shot in the foot. Apple, crazy talk there from what they're doing. But in true Apple fashion, they sold it like it was the best thing you'd ever seen. Nobody makes a screen like Apple, and you're going to buy tons of these hand over fist. Reality?
Yeah.
No, you're not. What they want you to do is buy alongside the Apple Studio and buy 3 other things, aren't they?
Yeah.
And go with that. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there was anything here to kind of say, whoa, crazy. That Ultra chip is a standout for me, total standout. I
Yeah.
think that's the only place I'm going.
Massively.
But I guess then really, in true, Apple style, and at this stage of the game on our normal episodes, we drop this and put out the tech wrap rumor mill, and I think we should do because actually, what wasn't announced was the
Mac Pro.
indeed, but it was in a funny
But it
kind of
kind
way,
of was
wasn't it?
because they went, but that's for another day. They actually name dropped the Mac Pro, but said that's for another day. And considering they said the Studio is the M1 Ultra is the last in the M1 family. I think the Mac Pro is going to be a new one. I think we might get the M2 or a derivative of it for the Mac Pro.
Or how about they just make two, or they just slap two ultras in there?
They could do. Is that going to be enough though?
Yeah. So good point.
I'm just
you're right.
just because we know the limitations of the I/O on these chips. The
Yeah.
fact
So
that you
Apple,
can only get 4 displays by buying an M1 Ultra. Is that going to be enough?
Yeah, I
for
think
that
Apple
Pro?
needs to think logically around how they're going to do this, and I'm sure they have. Obviously, from a speculative point, if you look at it, they've dropped the Studio, which effectively, I want to say betters, but it doesn't really. Effectively, is on par with the current Mac Pro in terms of compute, isn't it?
Yes,
I'm not talking,
but not the kind of
spec.
reasons why people buy a Mac Pro. Because the other
No.
part is expandability.
Yeah.
If you're going into that proper Pro, the people that pay that $50,000 or pounds for a Mac Pro, they've got exotic hardware they need to connect to that.
Yeah.
And there's no expansion. There's no PCI Express slots on a Studio or anything with an M chip we've seen so far.
No, and the Studio's, I think the other thing about the Studio's chassis design is only bigger to give them the thermal coupling, the thermal cooling needed for the Ultra. That's the only reason you've got a bigger chassis there.
But the bit that got me actually, I should have mentioned it earlier. We're talking about Studio, but when they first started talking about it, they said it's modular. I'm like, oh,
what?
There's no modular. What they mean by modular is you can plug a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor into it.
Yes.
So it's very modular compared to an iMac.
Yeah,
but not the modular we were thinking of when they said it.
No, that's just Apple speak, isn't it?
Right.
The Mac Pro. Apple teased themselves. They got the rumor out there first, didn't they? So they basically they shot the rumors down already because yes, the Mac Pro is coming, but clearly they have to drop that and make it absolutely stand out. They have to, as you say, somehow accommodate their existing user base. If not, they are drawing a line in the sand to say you're either with us or you're not.
Yeah, and this is why I think it's not going to be based on M1. I don't think there's enough I/O to make the Mac Pro as good as it needs to be. I'm not going to question the horsepower. Yeah, stick 2 or 4 ultras together, and yeah, whoa, more enough horsepower. But they need to get the IO sorted. I
But
think
what
maybe
I
the M2 is where they reevaluate the IO on
Yeah,
it and
but what
massively
I don't
expand
see them
that.
doing, it's just my opinion, but in no way do I see them releasing the M2 with the Pro, because that's not how they're going to do it. That they don't bring out you don't bring out the big guns to start with. They're gonna drop the M2s. I
Why
think
not?
next.
Every other manufacturer does.
Yeah, but Apple. Yeah, but you then why didn't they do that? Why didn't they go big bang with the M1?
Because this is their first time at a chip.
I maybe
Well,
look.
I'm not okay. I lied. So they've done all the iPhones and the iPad chips, but a proper true desktop chip.
Yeah. Look, it is entirely plausible that they could do that. You're right. They could, do a U-turn and be like, boom, M2.
Or maybe we'll get the M1X, M1X Ultra.
Well, yeah, I guess there isn't a new chip. We've just tweaked it slightly, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't know.
But if they don't go M1, I don't see them going Intel, because that would have be egg on their face.
No,
I
it won't
think
be Intel. It can't be Intel.
the rollout with AMD chips, Ryzen.
I mean, I would love to see that. We'll put a Threadripper in it or something, a couple of Threadrippers in, but that would just undermine everything they've just done.
Yeah, we've been working really closely with AMD to. No. It's like,
It will also natively play Xbox games and PlayStation 5 games because it's all based on the same chip.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think this is the thing: is that there's so much speculation with the M1. Sorry, the Mac Pro.
Yeah.
That what didn't come. So yeah, the Mac Pro, Apple have teased it. It is coming. Who knows when? What it's going to be? No idea. But we've got some idea of what it needs to do and what it needs to
Yeah.
be. What they also didn't drop then was the iMac Pro, wasn't it?
They've killed it. The
It's dead.
iMac Pro is dead.
Absolutely dead. Yeah.
They mentioned the Mac Pro will be the last Mac to get Apple Silicon. So unless they're going to bring out a new iMac Pro with Intel Silicon, the iMac Pro is dead. Rest
It
in
is
peace.
dead. Yeah, it's gone. And it had a good run. The last release of it was 2021, wasn't it? Where it got.
That's what the studio is. The studio is your iMac Pro replacement.
Yes. And what they've done cleverly with it is, instead of making it an all-in-one, they split it up. I think they'll get them more take up of it, because you're right. Most pros, most pros have their own screens as well. That's the other thing, isn't it? But yeah, you're right. When you look at the spec lineup for the iMac Pro, it was decent 27-inch screen. Funnily enough, it had the Intel Xeon W, which was 14 rating core, 32 gig of RAM, up to 256, but you could expand it, I believe. It also had the Radeon Pro. It had a terabyte, up to 4 terabytes of spec, Wi-Fi 5, 10 gigabit Ethernet. There we go. FaceTime camera, and then it had all the USB ports we talked about, plus SD card slot. So you're right, it is the replacement for the iMac Pro.
Yeah, I mean, an all-in-one was never truly a pro device anyway.
No, not at all. And I think also it dilutes from the iMac messaging.
Yeah,
they want to keep the iMacs at that nice middle of the road consumer.
iMacs, your home and school devices.
Yeah, that's what they want. And I think by slapping a Pro machine in there, they broke that messaging, because it kind of was like, well, what is it then? But no, it's, as you say, it's really clear now what that is. It's home and school machine. If you want, a basic version of that, we'll sell you a Mac Mini. But if you want the Pro, the step into the Pro world, then yeah, it's the Studio, and then whatever the Mac Pro is when it comes out.
Yep.
But there you go. We've just spent, best part of an hour talking about several products. We've also just spent the best part of several thousands of pounds imaginary on that equipment, which we're never going to buy, thank God. But with that, then, we'll be back next week for episode 79, where normal service resumes, when we will have the latest in all the tech stories coming out. I can tease you now, we're going to have stories on Intel, Google, Nvidia. Yes, Steve Wozniak makes a small appearance as well. And we're going to cover some of the latest games as well, with a quick look at the Elden Ring, which is the hottest game out at the moment. But with that, I've been Jay.
And I've been Carl. Have a good evening, all.